Welcome, everyone, to the top priorities for tech leaders in 2022 as part of the Be Unstoppable Summit. As technology becomes a differentiator for organizations, the need for uninterrupted IT has never been more important. Along the same lines, there has been a shift toward greater employee engagement and experiences as organizations adopt this anywhere operations and always on model. I'm Joy Sue, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm the Senior Director of Freshservice, a right-sized service management solution. And with me, I have Christopher Key from the Hackett Group, who is going to share the top priorities for tech leaders as they navigate for 2022 and beyond. Welcome, Christopher.
Pleasure to be here, Joy. Thanks for having me. My name is Christopher Key. I'm a Senior Director here at the Hackett Group. The Hackett Group is a global end-to-end consultancy organization. We're known in the marketplace for our benchmarking, for our research, and for our transformation capabilities. So excited to share the findings of our research with you here today.
All right, let's dive right in.
So for today, what we intended to share are the prioritized technical trends for 22. We'll take a look at the critical focal points for organizations, and then we'll make some strategic recommendations. A bit of background, this data is based on a study that Hackett conducts annually in the fall. So we go out to our constituency and we ask technology leaders, what's keeping them up at night? What are their areas of focus? And this year we had over 300 respondents across the enterprise provide their feedback to this survey. And so again, we're excited to share these results with you here. And for starters, we'll look at the technical trends for 2022. So we'd like to introduce this with our top 10. So when we reached out to technology leaders, we gave them a handful of options to say, okay, what are the things that you're really going to be focused on? What's going to be driving your attention this year? And it's not a surprise that security is number one. Security's been number one for a few years running now. It goes without saying, everything that we do, we have to have a strong security posture. All individuals within an organization need to be good stewards of security and have that mindset. And we'll see later that technology leaders feel like they have a pretty good grasp of the needs for security moving forward. It's these other areas that I think are extremely insightful in terms of where the focus is for technology leaders today. And that starts with number two, that effective strategic partnering. If there's anything that is the linchpin for organizations, it's the failure to understand the needs of the business. And this is reflected by the consensus here that in order to drive effective outcomes for the business and for the enterprise, we need to make sure we understand what those goals and objectives are. Ergo, we need to have effective strategic partnering. And there are critical things that organizations need to do to have this. They need to have the roles and the functions to have that connective tissue between the technology function and the business. They need to have good reporting on what the technology function is doing to drive the outcomes, et cetera. And Joy, I know this is a core tenet of what you guys do at Fresh. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about strategic partnering from your perspective.
Absolutely. The technology leaders that I've talked to say this is key to their success. Not only partnering and having the right tools in place, but really seen as a credible leader across the C-suite, being that strategic advisor and not only keeping the business running, but using technology as the catalyst for growth. So they're more accountable and they're actually have a lot more skin in the game. And I think that's very exciting for all the technology leaders out there.
I concur. I think it's extremely exciting. And we're seeing technology leaders with a seat at the table more so than ever before. And it's a testament to the fact that technology is the enabling function for organizations. As we pivot to number three, thinking about the value from data, we'll talk more about this, but organizations really need to be able to harness the data that they're gathering from what we like to say, all of the exhaust of the transactions, all of the work that we're doing. There's details in there that we need to capture. And so not only do we need to maximize that value, but as we look across to number six, we need to make this an industrialized capability for organizations too. The insights that we gain from data are not a one-time thing. It's truly an insight cycle. And so we need to be thinking about governance, enabling tools for our business partners to consume the data, how they're using that to be more predictive and prescriptive, and then ultimately who the audience is for that. So number 3 and number 6 here tie together. When we think about skills and talent, so unfortunately, over the past couple of years, we've been hearing more and more about this great resignation. And it's at the same time that we have a great acceleration of digital transformation for organizations. And so what are the skills that we need, not just from a technical side, but also from that business partnering side, Joy, that you mentioned? What about the critical thinking, the overall business acumen, the decision making? And so those are going to be core for organizations to have an eye on as we move forward, not just through 22, but in the years ahead. All of this is kind of tied together with number 5 here, the transformation to a digital operating model. And this is really rethinking how we not only provide services from a technology perspective, but how we interact with the organization overall from an enterprise perspective, and how we align our resources to best support the products and the platforms that again are driving performance across the G&A and the front office as well. So we need to be mindful of that transformation to more digital thinking and a more overall digital operating model. And Joy, I know this is, again, something that you guys talk about at Freshworks quite a bit. So I'd love to get your feedback on this one.
Yeah, and last year when we did this, we talked about how the past 2 years have been such a catalyst to drive change and to drive transformation, but that hasn't stopped. I think it's not just driving change and how to support in this environment. It's really thinking about the way forward and adapting as we go along, and going to cloud and everything as a service is going to be critical as consumption is so disparate. You no longer have the walls as you support your entire employee base. You're supporting people as wherever they are. And I think that's really key to plan for that and to evolve as times evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. You just made a nod to number 9 and 10 here, so we'll get to that momentarily. But as you can see, this is all integrated together. We talked about the industrialized capabilities around analytics already at number 6. From a cost efficiency perspective, this has always been on our top 10, but it's moved farther down the list. I think organizations recognize that it does take investments in technology to help drive performance, but at the same time, we need to ensure that we are making the strategic investments that really provide value to the organization, so we can keep an eye towards the bottom line for the technology function, but also for the overall enterprise. And at the same time, as we are increasing and adding new capabilities, we want to ensure that we are aggressively sunsetting legacy systems, that we are not driving complexity, self-inflicted complexity, which in turn drives cost. So always have to have a mindset to that. And I think one of the ways that organizations really generate value from their investments in technology is through number 8. It's through recognizing faster time to value for the technology-enabled platforms and products that we're providing. So as we think about moving to a digital operating model, as we think about leveraging our talent in a way that can drive outcomes, we want to provide value faster from the ideation phase to production. How can we do that, and how can we delight our customers as such in doing so? So again, I know this is something that your platforms are intended to do, and maybe you can share a little bit more about that as well, Joy.
Yeah, delight is what we do, and getting our customers to see value instantaneously is what we always strive for. So many times when I talk to the technology leaders, like the ones attending our session today, they have battle scars from past implementations or past purchases where it took them years to realize value or to even get implemented, or just there's so much that holds them back. Having a solution that can get there instantaneously and provide value and get them to perform is so critical in this day and age.
Yeah, and that's the expectation, right? As consumers of technology in our everyday lives, we're kind of evolving into a mindset that will have everything at our fingertips, and it's no different for our employee experience and ultimately for our customer experience as well. So that time to value is going to be critical, as evidenced here in our top 10. number 9 and 10 kind of go hand in hand, and it's not a surprise in today's environment that we need to be not only working from anywhere, but able to engage our customers from anywhere as well. Again, recognize that value that we're getting from the technology solutions. How has this played out for you guys over the past couple of years, and where do you see this going forward, Joy?
We see not only customers, having those expectations, wanting the best experiences, but also all the employees within any company. They want to have the service that they really need to be effective at their job. They also have apps at home that they use that they get instantaneous gratification, and they expect the same when they go to work. So we have to speed up. We have to make sure SLAs are met, and we have to make sure they're met with some form of delight. And that's something that we do really well here. And I think as companies are looking to build out different ways to support employees wherever they are and how they work, I think delight is always a factor you have to think about.
Yeah, I mean, just again, as we're customers of different technologies, of different services ourselves in our personal lives, we are ultimately customers within our professional lives too. Exactly to your point, we are stakeholders in the investments that are made in technology, and we have to ensure that as stakeholders, we have an eye to that enablement from anywhere or service from anywhere perspective. So this is our top 10 for the year. We'd like to pivot now towards some of the critical areas of focus for organizations. So as we think about this top 10, what we've done here is we asked our constituents, how important are these, and what's your ability to actually achieve these objectives? And you can see that those that are more critical in importance are along the x-axis, and that able to achieve these objectives along the y. And leaders said that it's really 2 areas that are critical for us this year. It's around maximizing that value of data that we talked about on number 3 and number 6 on the previous slide, and making sure we have the right skills and talent aligned to the needs of the business. And so that not only speaks to the talent focus, but also back to that alignment to the business. And you'll see that the effective strategic partnering is extremely critical as well, but it's one of those areas that technology leaders seem to feel confident in their ability to do so. And that's because it is a priority for them. The other area that is right on the border of being a critical development need goes back to that industrialized enterprise analytics capability. So it's not only maximizing the value from the data, but establishing an enterprise capability around data and driving insights and better predictability and those sorts of decision-making allowances. So really not a surprise here, but I think there's some other areas, harkening back to the previous slide, Joy, that you talked about from a work from anywhere, engage from anywhere perspective.
Yeah, and for us at Freshworks, we're kind of identifying this as the shift from this work from any office to this uninterrupted anywhere. So the notion of, yes, you could work from anywhere. You could work from a cafe, from your own home, wherever you're comfortable. However, we want to make sure whatever it is you need to be productive at work is uninterrupted to you. And also, as employees are considering other options these days in light of the Great Resignation, it's so critical that you consider the employee experience, because it's always harder to retain the employees. And so you want to start with that. Think about ways we can make things simplified and automated so that the mundane tasks are taken out. Think about ways that we can fulfill SLAs in such a simple way where the agents are delighted as well as the employees.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that impacts culture for an organization, and culture has been found to be more challenging in this work from anywhere environment, because we're not shoulder to shoulder, and so we need to make sure that every experience that our stakeholders have and our customers have don't interrupt the culture that we're trying to build in this work from anywhere model. So I think that's a great point. And as we think about, what are the initiatives that organizations are going to be doing to meet these objectives? So again, number one, cybersecurity goes without saying. We need to have it. Innovation's up there. 73% of respondents deemed this as a critical initiative for the organization. And we're seeing this innovation happen. We're seeing rewarded behavior for innovation. Number three is closing that skill gap from a priority perspective. 70% of respondents said these are going to be major initiatives. But again, thinking back to the criticality of this one, it's really going to be an area that we need to keep an eye on and ensure that we're finding those right skills, and in doing so, maintaining that culture that we just talked about. The customer centricity, of course, we need to keep our customers in mind. That kind of goes without saying. And then the automation of the business and technology processes. This is something that organizations were down the path on a few years ago, but was truly accelerated by these current times of the pandemic. And so leaders ranked this as the number 3 critical area that they need to focus on is this automation of business and technology processes. When we think about disruptive scenarios, so we've talked about this, Joy. What we're seeing here is the percentage of respondents that are either planning to respond to this type of disruption or already executing these areas. And so again, as we think about the work from anywhere and the as a service from anywhere deployments, where are organizations from your perspective today along this?
Given that most organizations I've talked to have had 2 years to prepare for work from anywhere, I think they're well on their way. They're getting to that rhythm. And I think, technology leaders are starting to see, yeah, I can do this, and the SLAs are being met. The as a service one, I think it differs depending on industry as well as geography. However, we're seeing that it's no longer an option. Instead of, where asset ownership used to be the mandate, now it's as a service. You want to be able to be agile. You want to give employees what they need and consume what they need. And as a service fits that model.
It absolutely does. Absolutely. I think one of the other areas to highlight on this slide is around AI. This was deemed as a somewhat likely disruptive scenario, and maybe a little concerning might not be the right word, but as we think about organizations that are actually executing around AI and more of that hyper converged and connected automation with elements of AI and machine learning, et cetera. We find that really around a third of organizations are in that planning phase, and they're not doing anything about this yet. And here at Hackett, we really feel that this is the direction of where technology is heading. Augmenting our processes through artificial intelligence and things like machine learning. And as we think about the entire ecosystem, how can we really drive customer experience faster, by faster time to value, by being able to integrate our transactions so we can look at the data and again delight our customers, right? And so I think AI is really going to be an area that accelerates quite rapidly over the next couple of years. And I'm a little concerned that technology leaders didn't really see this as a likely disruption, and that they're not enacting upon it as much as some of these other areas. But I think we'll see that grow over the next year or two.
And what I'm seeing from my vantage point is that it's not really they're not prioritizing or they're not seeing it. I think there's some hesitation around committing to AI. Although hyper automation is going to be top of mind and eliminating redundant work and manual work is important, they've also seen their peers not been successful implementation of AI. Yeah. There's a lot of solutions out there that promise a lot, but doesn't get you that quick time to value, or it takes 6 months to a year or more to train up the AI and ML language. So there's a little bit of, I don't know if it'll work for us. And they're in the wait and see model. And the key I would recommend here is to make sure that you pick a solution that is easy to implement and has that quick ability to ramp up with your operations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, that's actually a great segue to our critical focal points here. So as part of this survey, we look at the expected growth and adoption levels of technologies. And then our organizations realizing their objectives, their business objectives through the use of these kinds of tools. So the tech dollars that we saw, coming for this year, and we are expecting growth in resources and FTEs. These flow in most abundance towards cloud and cloud migrations. We see that really 100% of organizations that responded either have large-scale deployments in place, or they are piloting small-scale deployments. And what our data shows us is that cloud, for the second year in a row now, and this is going to continue to climb, outpaces on-prem systems today. And in fact, by the end of the year, organizations are predicting between 60 to 70% of their stacks will be cloud enabled. So cloud is certainly continuing to grow at a rapid pace, and we see that projection here. And we're realizing the objectives using cloud. We'll talk more about that on the next slide and see some results from a recent cloud study that Hackett did. But a very good good sign for cloud-based technologies here. The workforce enablement tools, again, 90% of organizations. I think this has accelerated obviously over the past couple of years. It's going to continue to grow. And again, a majority of these are meeting expectations, or in fact, actually exceeding expectations. So that's great. I think some of the areas that, to your point, Joy, are not meeting the expectations here around BPM tools and even around automation and RPA. Unfortunately, more than a third of those deployments aren't meeting those objectives. And I think in a lot of cases, it's because we're not partnering well with the technology organization to implement these solutions. I think that people are trying to do too much with these kinds of tools, and they have loftier expectations than what the technology itself can do without considering changes in process. And I think that for things like BPM tools and what we don't see on this slide are things like virtual reality and augmented reality. They're still growing, right? These are not mature areas yet. And so I think as these technologies mature, as there are better and more defined use cases, as there's more experience in failure and having more learnings on how to deploy these right, and the information that we're capturing through these automated transactions and business process mining, that these are going to increase. So I think it's a kind of a good news, bad news scenario. They can only go up in terms of meeting expectations. Yeah. And so I talked about cloud. So we did a major study here at Hackett, and it's no surprise what our findings are. It cemented the fact that the cloud really is resiliency, speed, agility, productivity. There are cost savings to be had as well. There are cost savings from an infrastructure perspective. There are savings from an application perspective in terms of hard ROIs, actual dollars. But the savings that you get from a resiliency perspective, far fewer outages, much less downtime, from a speed and agility, from gaining insights, and as we talked about, Joy, earlier, faster time to market, faster releases. From a productivity perspective, a lot less time spent on administration and time to value from a production release, far shorter, and that allows a lot more innovation then for the organization. We can reallocate our assets and our time towards driving innovation and new solutions for the organization. So I'm curious your thoughts on these results, Joy, around cloud.
Yeah, and with the cloud and the move to cloud, I like to say that understanding your entire infrastructure and the whole landscape is going to become important. I think all of your findings from this Hackett Group research are aligned with all the customers that I've talked to. And I think the one addition I would make is that having that landscape and knowing what you have, planning, and then optimizing that is going to come play as you build out that SaaS infrastructure within your technology landscape. And then, understanding where your organization may want to grow and kind of preparing for the future-proofing your ecosystem is going to be key.
Yeah, I completely agree with that last statement. It's one thing to just lift and shift and go to the cloud, but how can we optimize, right? How can we build cloud native platforms or procure cloud native platforms that are scalable, that will help grow as the organization grows. And so having an eye to the future of what we're doing in the cloud is of utmost importance, because it's as we see here, 70% within 3 years of the full technology stack will be cloud enabled, and because it drives all of these things, that's only going to continue to accelerate. So we need to have an eye to not just, hey, we're in the cloud because everybody else is, but what's it doing for our organization today? What can it do for our organization tomorrow, right? So I think that's a key point, Joy. Thank you. So with that, we want to pivot to the recommendations. What are we advising our clients on this year, and where should the focus be for organizations? Certainly from a cost perspective, we need to be mindful of cost, and we need to spend strategically. We need to ensure that the investments that we're making, the bets that we're making on technology really drive value for the organization. So again, it goes without saying, it's going to require some investment in technology to drive performance across the enterprise. We just need to be mindful of where we are placing those bets and spend strategically. I think, from an automation perspective, we've seen this accelerate over the past couple of years. It's going to continue to accelerate with, we just talked about BPM tools and RPA, et cetera. So thinking about how we can streamline and automate enterprise processes, both within the technology function ourselves, right? We need to be good stewards, but also how we're enabling the enterprise. When we think about data and analytics, certainly, we need to be capturing all of that exhaust and turning it into insightful information to be more predictive, more prescriptive. We need to, again, make this a continuous insight cycle and not just a one-time request for reporting and information. We just talked about cloud, go all in on cloud. It really does drive efficiencies. It does drive hard ROIs, but more so the tertiary benefits of resiliency and agility. And in fact, when we did a study at the beginning of the pandemic, the majority of organizations that were cloud-based were found to be much better off in terms of being able to serve their customers from anywhere, in terms of being able to provide reporting, et cetera. So again, cloud has proven itself. It continues to accelerate in the marketplace, and we're going to see a lot more of it. And then ultimately, we need to have the right skills. We need to have the right people. We need to make sure that we're thinking not just from a technology focus, but from a business alignment focus. Joy, to your point earlier, we need to ensure that we are maintaining a culture and that we have the right talent to not only operate these new products and platforms that we have, but they have an understanding of what that means for enterprise performance within an organization. So.
Well, these are great recommendations. I hope all the viewers out there, all the IT leaders are watching, taking note, and start implementing some of these for 2022. And Christopher, it is always a pleasure to work with you and the Hackett group and to get your insights. It's been so fun for me to spend this morning with you. And thank you all who have tuned in for the Be Unstoppable Summit. We hope you continue to tune in for more of the sessions. We'll see you next time.